I'm Alexandra Koндратьева, a teacher of English, a methodologist, a director of studies, and even an educational games designer. I have a question for you. Have you, as teachers, ever thought that you are a therapist? To your simple "how are you?" you may receive, "my dad has just scolded at me," or "I had a fight with my wife this morning," or "probably my teachers hate me." How to react? That's our basic question as teachers. Now, that's a tricky situation because very often there are no right answers, which is exactly the topic of my talk today.
Хотите постоянно развиваться в преподавании иностранных языков? Школа Дмитрия Никитина проводит образовательные тренинги, конференции и курсы для преподавателей. Подробности о событиях можно узнать по ссылке в описании.
And I'm going to give a talk about emotional intelligence in class for life. So just a few pics from my classes, judging by which you can see that I work with different ages, different levels, and I have discovered for myself that everything that happens beyond your course book plays a significant role on your lesson. In the course of time, I've learned to be a good observer. So what do I actually notice first? We are driven by emotions, which is all right because we are only humans after all. But judging by the picture that you can see right now, this is one of my students, Veronica. In most cases, I believe you can predict the emotions. They are disappointment, frustration, even hopelessness. And oh yes, they do affect our lessons. So just to start with, what is emotional intelligence? I'm going to ask you some true-false questions, and your task will be just to predict the answers. So the first question, emotional intelligence means being emotional. And now you think whether it's true or false. It's definitely false because everybody has emotions. The second one, women are more emotionally intelligent. True or false? I believe that the majority of you are women right now. It's actually false because emotional intelligence doesn't have gender. The third one, emotional intelligence naturally increases as you age. True or false? This one is actually true-ish because we grow older and get wiser. And the final one, emotional intelligence, is just about being empathetic, which is also false because there is a lot more to emotional intelligence than just empathy. So your emotional intelligence is basically handling your emotions. So please raise your hand if you care about emotional intelligence in your class. I do. So while our intelligence is more about processing information in the most logical way, emotional intelligence is more about processing feelings and understanding behavior. And there are 5 key parts of emotional intelligence. So at the conference, I know that I will be performing right in front of, right before the lunchtime. And probably right now you're also waiting for your lunch. That's why I decided to place the picture of this pizza. It's mouth-watering, I believe. And you can see 5 key parts around it. So I just wanted to make some comparisons. So let's compare. Here comes the situation. You feel a bit hungry right now, yeah? I'm so hungry. What key part out of these 3 do you think it is? It's actually self-awareness. Yes, I feel hunger. The next one. Well, I can actually wait. I won't die from starvation, right? Which one should this one be? It's self-regulation. And then here comes the idea, well, I will learn about a new technique in a moment. And that will be our motivation. Probably after that, you may have some thoughts about the speaker, like, wow, okay, the speaker has probably been preparing so much for this talk, and probably she's nervous, so she needs our support. And this one will be empathy. And the final one, wow, okay, we're all in the same boat here, and I'm not going just to keep myself to myself. And of course, it's about social skills. So here come all of them. Now a few words about the importance. Why is it actually important? Well, emotional intelligence actually protects you from the mental health impacts of stress. You might have low or lower blood pressure and therefore lower risk of a stroke or heart disease, which is also good, right? Then it's easier to work hard at studies and you're more likely to be offered promotion and leadership positions, which is also a plus, right? The next one, it helps to connect better with the people you care about. And your students, well, basically everybody cares about. And the final one is about the ability to self-regulate, which can help you avoid impulsive and rash decisions. So you see how important it is. Unfortunately, this is something we still lack at schools, and I want to share with you one working technique that will help you take advantage of your students' emotions in class. Sorry, here comes my girl, one more time, Veronica, and here comes her real situation that she once brought up right after school. So we were in the middle of our warm-up, sharing experiences, speaking about the first part of the day. And she just complained. What do you think she felt? Well, she definitely was not very pleased with the teacher, with the history teacher, yes. And she hated the teacher, but she also blamed herself for something. And this is a typical situation when your students come and complain about something. Very often they bring negative emotions. And we are going to try to use these emotions and come up with a nice technique. So that's how it works. Every time you have a situation, in our case right now, this is the history teacher giving not a very pleasant comment, right? Of course, my girl, well, she's practically a victim. And we also have an offender. In our case, this is the history teacher because she offended the girl. What do we do next? Our task is to process that situation. So there will be two basic questions for the victim, but at the same time for the offender. How to work with that? So you can have a whole group discussion. You can form mini groups of like 3 or 4 students in one group. You can ask your students to work in pairs and every time to try to answer the question. So let's start from the victim, yeah? What does she feel? Well, most obviously, she feels frustrated, maybe she feels angry, right? Why does she feel it? Well, my students, my teenagers normally say that, well, it's obvious that she feels bad because of the teacher, yeah? But now we will try to look at the situation from a different perspective and actually answer practically the same questions, speaking about the offender. What does the teacher feel? Well, there can be different options, but very often students come up with the idea that probably the teacher feels guilty. Possible. Why does she feel guilty? Because, well, she is an adult and she understands that she has offended one of the students. As an option, there can be different answers. And it's nice if they come up with different ideas, which you are welcome to discuss.
Хотите постоянно развиваться в преподавании иностранных языков? Школа Дмитрия Никитина проводит образовательные тренинги, конференции и курсы для преподавателей. Подробности о событиях можно узнать по ссылке в описании.
Now, why to invent something new? Because we have plenty of different course books. And why actually I came up with such an idea? Because looking through various course books, I found scarce exercises and activities and questions that help develop emotional intelligence as a soft skill. So probably you're familiar with Speak Out book, and if you are, maybe you remember the text. There was a really nice text about one imposter, and here came the questions. Right now, after my experimenting, I actually would change the questions, and I would ask not, do you think he was a good man? But I would transform the question into something like, in what ways was he a good person? So we always try to find something positive in a person. I'll explain a bit later why. Then I would also add such a question as, what could make him less likable for others? Why so? And as long as our question in the book suggests punishing him for something, I would change it to the opposite. Why shouldn't he be punished? So it's always good to see the whole picture. Why it helps? Because in the position of the victim, it's much easier to see different options for the fuller picture and try to understand the offender in any situation. And then it feels much easier and you can get over the situation. That's the main thing. So, and now the second step of this technique. You have the situation, any situation again, like here, very typical one actually. Again, there is a victim, there is an offender. Look at my situation, try to come up with the ideas who is who. But this time we add the element of critical thinking as well. And that will be the support team. What does it mean? So one more time, we answer questions. And we have already done it with the slide where we had the history teacher situation. So what does the victim feel about the dress? Probably anger. Yeah, she feels angry. Why does she feel it? Because she was dreaming about this dress. Her friend, probably she feels all right, but usually my students also try to say that the offender feels guilty. And it's quite obvious why. Even after buying the dress, this is her friend, so she obviously has some feelings to her friend. The support team should come up with some benefits, and this is not about emotions, it's more about critical thinking, because speaking about benefits, we try to just explain the offender's actions. Why has she done it? Maybe she acted on impulse, can happen, right? What is the benefit from the situation? Well, first of all, it's a good idea to have a talk speaking about these two best friends, yeah? Second of all, probably there will be a good bargain in the shop. So basically, all ideas are welcome, the more the better. Let's have a look at another example. This is a situation of my own, actually, so I definitely like using it. My friend and I agreed to meet, but almost right before the meeting, she texted me with some apologies, unpleasant. And naturally, the first thing that we feel is something negative. So we process it again. We discuss the feelings. We try to explain why we feel this way. It's important. We again try to speak about the offender's feelings. And again, we add critical thinking. Now, The most anticipated question that I can get from you is actually about ages, because this technique can be used with children. It's possible, not very simple, but possible. Teenagers, adults for sure. Adults like such things. But teenagers sometimes feel reluctant processing such situations because they are very real. And sometimes they don't want to draw any parallels with their real life, everyday situations. That's why a really nice idea would be to use something imaginary. So I decided to take a situation from the book. The situation looks ridiculous. Please have a look at it. It's about a girl, basically absolutely able, who got a pair of crutches. She didn't actually need those. She was waiting for a doll. So it doesn't look like a very typical situation. I think you'll agree with me. That's why it's much easier to discuss it. As well as for teenagers, it's much more interesting to play games about space, yes, or discuss elves and fairy tales, because it's not their everyday life. So, same things, but the situation is imaginary. Another option is to ask your students to come up with the ideas of their own. You can have a look at mine. If they want, they can write just on a spare sheet of paper the situation that has happened to them. If they don't feel like doing this, if they don't feel like sharing, they can use some imaginary ideas. So, like mine. It can be anonymous, or they can write their names. Why not? And then you collect the papers. You can leave the ones you don't have time to work through for the next lesson, or you can process all of them.
Хотите постоянно развиваться в преподавании иностранных языков? Школа Дмитрия Никитина проводит образовательные тренинги, конференции и курсы для преподавателей. Подробности о событиях можно узнать по ссылке в описании.
Okay, my question, and I want you to give a thought about that, is about benefits for the teacher, because like I have already discussed, I believe you agreed with me about obvious benefits for the students. They process the situation and basically they learn how to handle such things, how to get over them. Benefits for the teachers, and here are the things that I strongly agree with. Judging by my practice, well, it's good speaking practice. It's a real nice warm-up. As I have already said, very often at the very beginning of the class, you ask the students how they are. It develops emotional intelligence and it develops critical thinking. It's when we add the element of the support team. It requires no preparation, hooray! And most importantly, the whole group is involved, which brings me to the end of my talk. And I really, really hope that you will use it as soon as possible. I recommend you using only emotional intelligence bits at the first step, and a bit later add critical thinking. You can see the QR to the educational resources that I normally share, but you can also find me under the name of Stickman Education, because these are the things that I create for teachers. Thank you very much.